I'm Michael McGinnis, and this is Poetry Before the Storm, sponsored by Nix's Mate. There are many paths to poetry. Walk with us, one line at a time. nixsmate.pub. Growing up just outside Boston during the 70s, I became keenly aware of otherness. Of course, there was the racial otherness of Boston during the 70s with busing, but it was the ethnic otherness that I experienced in Malden, a working-class suburb 5 miles north of Beacon Hill. When my friends and I weren't breaking into abandoned factories, we were fighting about Irishness, Greekness, Frenchness, and Jewishness. There were no Italians in my neighborhood. A few miles east, in Revere, another working-class suburb of Boston, this week's poet, Jennifer Martelli, grew up in a neighborhood that was mostly Italian-American. For my family and me, Jennifer's neighborhood represented a strange, delirious place, full of others. During December, we always drove to that part of Revere to look at the lights because, it seemed, only Italians put up so many lights. For me, those homes were practically mansions. They had yards and grass. We had a cement backyard. Each ranch shimmered with white and blue and green and red lights. We had a fake tree with pipe cleaner-like branches and a Santa Claus poster on the front door. Who was the other? Us in our Gallic Celtic asceticism, or the Italian Americans of Jennifer's neighborhood with their explosions of light? Was it an otherness that cost Mondale and Ferraro the election in '84? For my father, it certainly was. As a firefighter, he was a classic Reagan Democrat. He was also an unrepentant bigot, the family's Archie Bunker, as he liked to brag. Geraldine Ferraro would have been too much for my father, who was supposed to have said to one of my sisters that if she came home with a black guy, he'd be disappointed, but if she came home with an Italian, he'd disown her. What I never realized was that for some Italian Americans, Geraldine Ferraro was also too much. Nix's Mate published Jennifer's chapbook in the Year of Ferraro in 2020, just as the chaos of both the pandemic and person, woman, man, camera, TV was starting. Please welcome Jennifer Martelli.
The two poems I'm reading, At the Corner of Assunta and Camille Roads, Revere, Massachusetts, and When Was My Anger Conceived, are from my chapbook in the Year of Ferraro, which grew into my forthcoming full-length, The Queen of Queens. I had been thinking of Geraldine Ferraro, her historic nomination to the vice presidency in 1984, how people just couldn't vote for a woman, maybe even for an Italian woman, for a Catholic who was pro-choice. And I thought, too, of my hometown and my lineage, which was entwined with anger and misogyny. Even before we repeated history with a pandemic that an administration ignored and with another historical vice president, Kamala Harris, I thought about anger and I thought about sadness and how they too repeat themselves. At the corner of Assunta and Camille Roads, Revere, Massachusetts. I didn't expect the majority of the Italian-American community to abandon me by their silence. Geraldine Ferraro. A small, gray, pregnant cat was lifted by the talons of a hawk. The brown and white bird carried its prey past the overgrown blue fur and the afternoon moon, which loomed like Mary's breast, pressed against the sky window. As the cat flew, she watched the low-pitched roofs of the new ranches, the dugout foundations, homes she would never live in. The moon surrendered itself to this tableau. The gray cat, the hawk that had never been seen before in this neighborhood, all the hunger. Weeks earlier, some boys had caught that golden black snake dangling deep within the blue furze branches. She would visit from the dug-up pond where houses would go. They chased her until she wore out from reticulation, her long spine unable to move quick like brain waves in a dream. I can barely write this. The boys looped her into a brown lunch bag, doused it with gas, lit it on fire. The cat did not see this, and the hawk, alighting by the muddy pond, released her. She stepped from under its wing, uncertain. I still don't know if this was a dream or a memory. The cat, the black and gold snake. There was charred skin. There were tire strips. There was a laboring cat. The whole neighborhood, nascent, silent. When was my anger conceived? The summer of assassinations, by the man-made lake, a hole so shallow and muddy, all the men held hands, formed a human net, and walked toward each other to the center to feel for some kid who might have gone under. There, on its shore, in the Kodak, me, in my little terry cloth bikini, all round as the moon's stomach. I'd worn a Batman mask attached by a thin rubber band all summer. My hands fisted, the nails bit crescents in my palms. The summer of my monarchy. Against the lazy Susan in the kitchen, I stood watching the president resign on the small TV. I cried because of the cramps and blood, the garter belt biting me. My mother said we'd never see this again, and she was wrong. Even married to my father, she couldn't predict the depth of a man's rage. The summer of my first abortion, the clinic 3 stops down from my dorm, 3 quick stops on the Green Line, and no one shot there yet but escorts needed 1 pink set of rosaries flung at my face. That year, 1984, my aunt said she wouldn't vote for anything that menstruated, could get pregnant, could bear a child.
Poetry Before the Storm is a production of Nix's Mate. Nix's Mate, publishing all 26 letters of the alphabet since 2016. Find us at nixsmate.pub.